My name is Sarah Wilson, and I am a designer here at Google, and one of the creators of this series, Design Is. We created this monthly speaker series as a space for those working in creativity and technology to come together and really think about ideas and perspectives that really help shape, designing a future we all want to be a part of. So today's topic, Design is Play, is a super fun one, and one that I think about in my day-to-day life between working full-time, having kids. Oftentimes that notion of play kind of gets pushed out. So really thinking about how instead of work and play being in opposition of one another, actually thinking of them coming together. So Erin is here, Erin Jang. She is going to talk about how play and work, yes, are often seen in opposition of one another, but when the two overlap, creativity does really flourish. So Erin is a designer and illustrator and behind the Indigo Bunting, and with a background in editorial and multidisciplinary design. Her work is a mix of graphic playfulness and editorial work. Erin has worked with clients such as the New York Times, GQ, Target, Urban Outfitters, Bon Appetit, and Wired, amongst many others. And most recently, she completed work as the design director for the Color Factory in New York City and created a public art installation at the Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian Design Museum. She co-authored the book Make and Give and is currently working on a new project with her 7-year-old son, which is to be published next spring. So let's give it up for Erin.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for the nice introduction. And thanks to the Google team for inviting me to come speak, and all of you for coming and showing up tonight. I'm really thrilled to be here to talk about design and play and how the two are intertwined. I'm going to talk about how we can approach design through the lens of play and about making work that also invites play. I'll show some examples of the projects I've worked on, both professional and personal, and hopefully illustrate some of these ideas. But before I begin, I'll share a little bit about my background. As Sarah said, I started out in editorial design, working as an art director at newspapers and magazines for several years. And then 8 years ago, I started my own studio, where I work on a wide range of creative projects. I work on magazines and books. I've done work with restaurants. I make posters, design cards and stationery. I design things for kids, which I really love. I make infographics, illustrations. I've worked on murals and installations. I work on projects big and small. And while there's a diversity to all these different projects that I work on, one common thread throughout is a love for playful design. So what does play have to do with design? When we think of play, most of us think of it as something that's reserved for children. We all agree how important it is for kids to spend time playing. There have been so many articles written about this recently, and a lot of research studies that confirm that play is crucial in a child's growth and development and creativity, and there can be consequences when we neglect play. There's an important book that talks about this, written by Dr. Stuart Brown, who's an expert in play, and he's spent his entire career studying the subject. His research shows that play is absolutely essential for us to thrive, not just as children, but as adults. And he asserts that play is an important catalyst for creative growth, and it has an important place even in our work. And by that, he's not talking about play just as recreation or like a diversion from work, like adding a ping pong table to an office, but play more as an attitude, a spirit, and an approach that we can bring to our creative work. For me, design is play. When I watch my sons playing and making something, I'm struck by the fact that it doesn't look all that different from design. When we look at these two images, we would agree that the image on the left is design, and the one on the right is play. But could it also be the other way around? For me, the answer is yes. the two have a lot more in common than we realize. When I watch my sons playing, making, and building something out of Legos or Magna-Tiles, I see that there's a creativity and a freedom to the way that they play, but also a seriousness to their wanting to solve a problem or to make something good. There's imagination, exploration, and a lot of trial and error. Many times there's frustration and disappointment, and things come crashing down, but there's always a curiosity, a spontaneity to what they're doing, and surprise. There's always a goal of delight, often resulting in a connection with others. This looks pretty similar to our design process, I would say. Many of my favorite artists and designers, they all share this understanding of design and play being intertwined. And they all express an aspect of playfulness in their design approach. So I just want to quickly highlight 4 of these design heroes who are sort of my role models in work and play. Karita Kent, she's the first example that comes to my mind. She was an artist, a nun, a social activist, and a teacher. And her pop art and her life as a whole was this joyful, colorful, and generous celebration of play. She understood that fluid relationship between work and play, and in her book, Learning by Heart, she points out that the definitions of work and play can actually look pretty similar. One dictionary definition of work is to make, affect, or bring into being, and the same dictionary defines play as to bring about, work into effect. And she says that play is a way of working, and working is a way of playing, and our best times are when working and playing are the same. And she even coined a new term for that ideal intersection of the two. That's such a good word, plork. We should all start using this word. As a teacher, she encouraged her students to make time to plork, to resist solemnity and self-consciousness, and to see and make things with fresh eyes. Ray and Charles Eames, of course, they understood how intertwined work and play are, and for them, working hard was a true pleasure, and playing meant continually pushing themselves to experiment in all kinds of mediums, from furniture to film, textiles, and toys. And they embodied that spirit of relentless curiosity. And they took play seriously. They often said that toys and games, and I would add play as an umbrella here, are the prelude to serious ideas. Their devotion to play led to making timeless objects that sparked imagination, and they made playful design accessible to everybody. Tibor Kalman is another favorite designer of mine, and he was an example of a playful provocateur. He used play to flip things upside down and transform the ordinary into designs that were attention-grabbing and unexpected. His double-sided umbrella is an example of humor and that playful twist of perception, of looking up to see a blue sky when it's pouring rain. He addressed social issues with his provocative and surprising designs for Colors magazine. And then there were the thought-provoking holiday gifts that his company, M&Co, sent out every year. One Christmas, his team sent out packages to all of their clients, and it was a box with a meal that resembled those that were given to the homeless on Christmas Day. And inside was a sandwich, a can of juice, a mustard packet, and a slice of pound cake, and a $20 bill that the recipient was instructed to either keep and spend for themselves or to donate to charity. So Kalman, he was this expert in a really different kind of playful creativity, of designing unexpected things that would challenge or even shock people out of their complacency. Paul Rand, the master of playfulness, he said that the eye should be made joyful through form and content. With simplicity and abstraction, color, and wit, he infused his designs from corporate logos to children's books with a playfulness in that form and imagery. He knew the power of a deceptively simple graphic solution, one that made people smile, and could use that to communicate a complex idea. He found it pretentious when a visual message professed to be profound and elegant, and he found it total nonsense, the notion that a design that was humorous or playful was less than. I like things that are playful, he said, things that are happy. I like to make the client smile, he said. So these 4 design heroes, they demonstrate to us the value and the power of playful design. But how do we go about returning to that playful spirit in our work? I'm going to share just some really small practical ways that have helped me to exercise this playfulness in the hope that it might inspire you in some way. So I think all playful design, it first begins with looking with unusual eyes. One of my favorite writers, Frederick Buechner, he defines art simply as paying attention to stop, look and listen to what's around you, and to see it as more mysterious than you might otherwise suspect. Karita Kent taught this very thing to her art students, teaching them that inspiration is often right in front of you, and that the creative process begins by noticing the uncommon in the common and the magic in the mundane. She even made her students literally walk around with a viewfinder, a small piece of paper with a little square cut out in the middle, as a way to discover unexpected beauty in the world. Last summer, I worked on a project called Manhattan Color Walk, an installation at the Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian Design Museum. And together with my friend, artist Leah Rosenberg, we had the idea to sample color from every street in Manhattan, from the northern tip at 220th Street all the way down to Battery Park. So I walked the entire length of the city, over 50 miles. My Fitbit was freaking out. I didn't know what was happening. And I took photos of every unique, colorful moment that I could find. In essence, practicing this principle of playful seeing, to look for the unusual in the usual places that I was passing every day. I've lived in New York City for over 12 years, and this project made me see my home in a totally new light, taking me to neighborhoods that I thought I knew, but realized I hadn't, and discovering humor and beauty, inspiration, and stories through these small squares of color that I found. Once we had one color and one moment captured for every street, we turned them into a Technicolor path at the museum. And it was a moment of surprise for anyone to enjoy. And it was really neat to see people interact with the installation, and the best part was when they realized that the color stripe actually had some other meaning attached to it, an observation from the city. We also made a free guide for visitors that explained the street and the reference for every single color. And the hope was that this installation would cause visitors to then leave and look at the city with different eyes. For me, and probably for most of you, I spend a lot of time designing on a computer and staring at a screen. But I think one of the best ways to play is to make with my hands and to play with different materials and tools that are outside of my comfort zone. And there are a few different ways that this kind of playful making can happen. One thing is being short on resources. Not having enough budget and not enough time can often be a really good thing. It's often forced me to play and to come up with unexpected solutions. My first jobs out of school were at newspapers, which notoriously have really small budgets. And at the Seattle Times, I was tasked with designing the weekly Going Out section cover. So every week was kind of like a Project Runway, make it work challenge. I'd be given a rough headline, a really bad stock image, and then 1 or 2 days to illustrate a cover. So I'd be given an image like this. This one is of, I think it was like the Kronos Quartet. So then I'd cut it up, I'd add a little paint, and then turn it into this. And be kind, this is like one of the first things I did out of college. But it's just this theme of making something out of nothing. And that idea would come up again years later at Esquire magazine. The table of contents is a page, if you work in magazines, you know that it's a page that's super formatted and templated and really boring. It's basically like a grid of photos that are already in the issue with text underneath. Nobody enjoys designing it. We usually give it to the intern, and most readers probably just skip over it after the ads. But my creative director, he wanted to rethink this page, and so I welcomed the challenge. I took all the images from the issue, I cut them up, and I tried rearranging them instead to make one new image. I think I used about 15 different photos and illustrations in this face. So each month was a new experiment, a new collage, often made, again, like the day before the page was shipping on deadline. And the readers could then expect something new each month and be surprised and discover a different look or a different technique that I tried. This one was cool because it invited the readers to play and to actually cut up the table of contents themselves, fold it up, and then make their own origami object. Curiosity is another driving force behind playful making. The Eames used to say that they never wanted to delegate understanding. And I think that's kind of the secret to playing really well. For me, if there's a technique or material that I'm curious about trying, I'll often try to weasel it into an illustration assignment that's given to me. With illustration, there are a million ways to render something in a really sleek way and to do it super fast, but I'm interested in the handmade and figuring out how to make things myself and with my hands. So ESPN hired me to create an illustration for a special issue devoted to LeBron James. And I wanted to try to do something new with paper that had a little bit more depth and shadow. And so there was this one little line in the brief that talked about LeBron and showing his many different sides. So that sparked an idea to hand cut individual photos of his face to illustrate just that. First, I sifted through hundreds of different images to find the right range of expressions, because I'm a crazy person. Sweet LeBron, sad LeBron, fired up LeBron, side-eye LeBron. Then I cut out every single face, played with them at different heights, and then made this collage. Someone probably could have done this in like 10 minutes in Photoshop, but I wanted to do it in paper. For a Fortune 500 issue, I wanted to make a 3D 500 in gold. But instead of doing something on a computer, I wanted to see if I could build it out of wood and then make a stop motion of it being assembled. And this was not the brightest idea, because I have zero experience working in wood. I must have ordered at least 5 different wood cutting tools on Amazon and then all these different wood adhesives and clamps to finally put it together. But in the end, there was something really satisfying about playing and figuring it out by myself. And then we got to do that stop motion that I wanted to do. So stop motions are really funny because they literally make everything look like it took 5 seconds to make. So sad. It's like the most labor-intensive thing to make stop motions. Anyway, another way to play, it can come out of a need to solve a small problem in your daily life. So when my oldest was 3, he suddenly hated eating breakfast, and it didn't matter what it was. We tried everything. He just wouldn't eat, and he was just totally over it. And I was really over trying to get him to eat. It was super stressful, and out of my total frustration, I thought it would just be funny to play with his food and see what happened. And to my surprise, he actually ate everything on this plate. I'm not even kidding. So then I did it again, and then I did it again. And I have to tell you this as a disclaimer, this doesn't work for every child, because I tried with my youngest, and you cannot trick him to eating vegetables. But for this moment in time, this little trick was a lifesaver, and then these food faces gradually became a way of playing. After seeing some of these, Lucky Peach magazine contacted me about a dream assignment, a food column on their website where my son and I would get to go on these food adventures and then make ridiculous food faces. So we went grocery shopping in Koreatown. I made this little guy with a kimchi nose. We went to the farmer's market and got cool vegetables to eat. Fun fact, those black string beans, they change color when you boil them, which is really cool. And my son made his own version too. We went to town at the oldest candy shop in New York City. And of course, my son said this one was his favorite. Then we took the subway all the way to the end of the line to Brighton Beach, where there's this big Russian community. And we explored all the grocery stores there to make this. Soon, Disney called and asked if I could make something that looked like Pluto. I said yes. And so there I am, spending a lot of time studying hot dog buns, a lot of time in front of the bread aisle. And it turns out black olives make really good eyes. I spent a lot of time being creepy at the supermarket, studying mushroom caps from the mushroom bin to find the perfect eyeballs for this. And then I was curious about making things in one color. Now, if I had to choose one design assignment that I think best encourages play, I would say try making a gift for somebody that you love, with the least cost but the most meaning and thoughtfulness. For me, a different part of my creativity gets unlocked when I make something special for someone out of a genuine place. And when I say genuine, I just mean not for a side hustle or for social media, but just for the sake of delighting another person. And these are the kinds of design projects that you're never going to win an award for or put on your portfolio, but really they're the most rewarding. It can be as simple as just playing with paper, like the set of nested cards, which I made for my husband. We skip birthday gifts and we just plan a day for each other instead. And so on each one of these is a hint for something that I've planned, like a coffee shop to try or a new art exhibit to see. And this idea made its way into a craft book that I wrote with a friend much later on, which is the photo that you see here. I sometimes make gifts with food, again, because I'm a crazy person. Here's a pie that looks like the face of someone I love. And here's a ginormous Pokemon Rice Krispie treat I made for my nephew. Does anyone know what Pokemon this is? Well, I know a lot about Pokemon because of the kids in my life. But my nephew, he was newly dairy-free and super bummed about not having a normal birthday cake. So I made this for him, and this definitely cheered him up. I love making things for children's birthdays because the end result is always unfiltered joy. My nephews are pretty cool kids, and they always picked the weirdest party themes, like a shadow party. Like, you cannot find supplies for a shadow party in a Party City aisle. So it requires a little bit of creativity, but I love that. One year, my nephew was obsessed with presidents. This is definitely before Trump. So I made these party favors, a little fold-out card with each type of coin, and then a strange fact about the presidents on each one. And it's not every day that you get money as a party favor, so him and his friends were super stoked. They also got some Obama bars. Why not? Just fig bars dressed up as Obama. Another way that I think it's helpful to exercise our sense of play is to use our creativity to make meaningful, unexpected experiences. One of my favorite sayings, which to me applies to just every area of life, is do small things with great love. And that to me is sort of the secret to working playfully and creating meaningful moments. As designers, we can get consumed by really large-scale projects that we're working on and what sort of reach that they're going to have on a large audience and success measured by metrics and clicks and followers. And I've just always found it a helpful exercise to consider, how can I make an experience that's just meaningful for one individual, or to think about the smaller daily moments? How can I make a mundane moment more surprising or memorable? So my son and I have been taken to reading books together aloud at night, and we've been on a Roald Dahl kick. When we finished Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I wanted to surprise him with a movie night. And I remember that when I read that book as a child, I just really wanted to know the feeling of opening up a chocolate bar and like finding a golden ticket. So I wanted to do that for him. I found some leftover chocolate from Halloween, my son's gold origami paper, and made this to give to him after school. And like the 15 minutes it took to make this at the end of a work day, it was worth it to just see his reaction, and he still talks about it. When we finished Fantastic Mr. Fox, I typed up this little invitation, and we feasted on chicken, carrots, and cider, just like the characters did in the book. Except ours was like store-bought rotisserie chicken and like dry carrot sticks. But he still thought it was super magical. After reading the BFG, I surprised him with a bottle of Frobscottle. I don't know if you've read this book, but you should. In the book, if you've read it, you know this is the giant's favorite drink, and it's this green fizzy soda that causes you to fart so strong it like sends you flying across the room. But it was amazing. Just this drop of food coloring could just elicit so much joy and laughter. So this little ritual between my son and me, it's obviously a really silly example, but it gets to this point of using play to create special, elevated moments. And we can practice that in small ways with the people that we love. But as designers, we should be thinking about how we can create these kinds of personal, unexpected, unforgettable moments on a bigger scale in the work that we do. I love this book, The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath, if any of you have read it. And it speaks to this importance of creating elevated, or they call it peak moments. And they say that these small moments of magic, they do not plan themselves. It's our job to defy the forgettable flatness of everyday work and life, and to be the designers of moments that deliver elevation, insight, pride, and connection. Children are the ultimate experts in play. These are my two boys, 3 and almost 8, and they're basically like my personal trainers in play. What I love about kids is that they don't care what you do, what your job title is, what project you're working on. They just want to know, are you able to play with them? And if you're taking things too seriously, well, very quickly, they'll give you like a gentle kick in the pants to snap you out of it and teach you how to just chill out and to play. What I love about little kids is their curiosity and the way that they see the world. There's none of this self-editing and self-consciousness and crippling perfectionism that we all struggle with as adults, but instead a wildly creative and honest and loving approach to the world. As designers, I feel like we have a lot that we can learn from kids if we listen to them and invest time into them, give them opportunities to express themselves and bring them alongside us in our work and even let them lead. I learned a lot about this on a project that I just completed with my 7-year-old son. And a book publisher, Abrams, they reached out to me last year about creating a really different kind of activity book set for parents and kids to do together. And so my son saw me working on this at home, and he was really interested in what I was doing. So I kind of let him in on the process. First, he started brainstorming and doing little sketches with me. Then he made a bunch of suggestions and edits. He's kind of humbling because he was always right about the stuff he was criticizing. But most importantly, he tested out all the activities to make sure they were fun for kids. And it helped tremendously to see this project through his eyes. And the book turned out so much better because he was a part of it. And I'm going to share just a few of the spreads. This is an introduction page that explains how my son and I work together, like Mad Lib style. And what I love about this project is that there's one book for a parent and one for a child. And the idea is that you're being creative and playing together, side by side, instead of like me just handing my kid a book and being like, go and do this. So it's really cool. It involves drawing, writing, learning a lot about each other through fun activities, like a this or that quiz, where you can learn about each other. Chocolate or gummies, sushi or pizza, all very, very important questions to ask each other. Or a space to share secret fears. My son was surprised to learn what some of those are for me. A page to remind the other person why they're so loved. Or to reflect on the things that we're good at and the things that we'd like to do better. And here's a first look at the covers. That you guys are the first to see these. It just put out on pre-order, and it comes out in February. So I hope you'll get a chance to check it out or to share it with your child. It's a project that's really near to my heart. Now, this is another project that's special to me, where kids took the lead. And this book was written and illustrated entirely by my son's second grade class. I just helped to put it together to raise money for his school. So 32 7-year-olds, they were told to let their imaginations run wild and to create any invention they would like to see in the future. And I think you'll be blown away like I was by their creativity, their ingenuity, and their heart. They thought of solutions for real-world problems, like how to generate electricity by using bouncy houses. So obvious. Why did we not think of this? Putting ants to work to bounce up and down to juice up your laptop. Or fantastical ideas of the future, like designs for flying cars or a pill to make you live forever so you can celebrate your birthday to infinity. Devices that help make life easier. The Tidier is a robot that cleans your room when your mom is on your case. Or a solution for the most difficult question in the morning, what am I going to wear? This machine will help you. Some of their inventions, they touched my heart, like this money machine for those less fortunate, so the homeless can insert 1 penny and get $100 back to buy the things they need. A device that senses evil in the world and transforms it to good with one zap. A garden where imagination grows, so anyone who's lacking in creativity or joy is free to come and take as much as they need. I honestly think Google should just give every one of these kids a job. So now this last point, it ties all these different aspects of play together, and it's a final encouragement for us as designers to keep making work that invites play. It can be something really small, like a toy for a child that leaves room for their imagination. Or it can be a project that invites play on a much bigger scale. Last year, I worked on Color Factory in New York City, and it was a 20,000 square foot collaborative, interactive exhibit that encompassed all of these elements of play that we've talked about here. From initial concepts to execution, there was an intentional and thoughtful approach that went into it, to looking, making, giving, collaborating, working with kids and giving them the space to create, making moments of surprise and connection. We wanted to make a space that would allow everyone, young and old, to play. And this room here was one of the first concepts that we had for the New York space. It came from the idea that in the city, we're constantly surrounded by so many people and in close contact with people on the train and the subway. on the sidewalk, but we're taught to never make eye contact. So we wanted to literally force people, sometimes strangers, to sit across from each other and to quietly go through these series of creative exercises that require looking very closely at the person across from you, often without breaking eye contact. It's usually really uncomfortable. I mean, when we first came up with this, everyone was like, that's the worst idea. Everyone's gonna hate it. But in the end, there's almost always a burst of laughter that's shared at the end of this exercise. And those two people make an unexpected connection. The idea of making and giving was at the core of what we wanted to do at Color Factory. So everyone who stops by the location, even those without a ticket, can get this map for free. And it leads to small, colorful experiences that were hidden throughout the city. They're meant to be moments of surprise, places to discover, things that we designed for people to be delighted by. One stop is a corner magazine stand, and behind the cashier, you can look for a very different kind of lotto ticket, different than all the other scratch and win cards. But ours guarantees a win every day, 7 prompts to make you feel like $1 million. Another stop takes you to an ATM that looks like any other old ATM, except this one doesn't give cash. Instead, when you punch in the secret PIN, it spits out a piece of art. And actually, the two people who put this together are right here, so you can talk to them after. Or from the first map that was here in San Francisco, one of the stops led to a neglected staircase in a Chinatown alley, which we transformed into a love letter to the neighborhood, a colorful homage to the comfort foods that my family taught me to love. And I just want to end by sharing something that hopefully sums up the reward that comes from designing for play. Last year, my mom came to visit me in New York, and she had never been to Color Factory in San Francisco or New York, and so I brought her through the space, and it was something special to see her genuinely surprised and delighted at every turn. And halfway through, she did something that I had never seen her do before. Most of my childhood memories are of her working really hard and taking really good care of us, but I cannot remember a single time where I saw her just like letting loose and dancing. So this meant a lot to me. Oh God, but this moment, to me, it settles the misconception and this internal conflict that we sometimes feel as designers, that if we want to be taken seriously, we have to make really serious and solemn work. But thank goodness for moments of pure joy like this to remind me that no matter how much life is stressful or life tries to wring play out of you, even if we have too many deadlines and too little time, that we should never take ourselves so seriously that we forget to make our work play. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Erin, for such a great talk. This is so wonderful. Yeah. We have time for questions, so if anyone has a question, I can pass the mic on.
Hi, thank you for the amazing talk. I think it was just what I actually needed to hear too.
Oh, good.
I think when it comes to play, there is this idea of spontaneity, and then, but I think there's also for me, a risk of not being able to become a thing. So if we have a project and a deadline, and we want to bring in the play mindset, but then I think as a designer, we have this perfectionism and wanting to make it to a fidelity that is presentable. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes play makes me feel what if I won't get there in time? Mm-hmm. What if this doesn't, it doesn't guarantee any way that it will work out?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I think about my kids actually all the time when I'm thinking of that. Because we think of play as just so free and spontaneous, just forget all responsibilities. But you actually watch, if you watch my son building something, 90% of it, he's super frustrated. Because he's building this thing with magnets and it's it's so precarious. And it's just all comes crashing down. And I have to remind him don't be discouraged, keep going, try to figure it out. And I mean, it's honestly like trying to preach to myself because I'm the same way. I get really discouraged and there's not enough time. But to that point of like not wanting to risk doing something because it won't end up getting published or used, like I think that's a mindset of like, that's that self-editing that we do a lot, and it kind of doesn't lead anywhere. I feel like that's part of, I think with creative jobs, like we have to just take risks and do stuff, and yeah, 90% of the time, it's not going to be the thing that's published, but I guarantee you all those things that you've practiced and done, those will get used later on for some other project. And that's how I like to think about it, that those ideas and the things that I tried are not going to get wasted. They'll always come back, and they're always going to find some other life in another project. Yeah.
Really inspiring to see your work. Where do you get ideas for playful projects like the food one and other kind of thing for people who have hard time, let's say, thinking of like creatively? Where do you get inspiration to do playful stuff or projects?
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like what I was talking about. A lot of these things are, I think it always just goes back to people and relationships. And you can just like, you see this on Instagram all the time, right? People are like, I'm doing this cool side project, and they're literally just doing it for the likes and trying to mimic something that someone else is doing. And there's no soul to it because it's literally a form. You're just doing a form. But I feel like things that are made with the heart of just doing it for one person, like I was talking about, it's all about the relationships. And when you care about a person, you will make stuff with that intention. I mean, Charles Eames, he used to always talk about design as hospitality, and I love that concept, right? You're not just like making something because you want to make it and be creative, but it's this hospitality of like, how can design meet a need? As a good host, how can I anticipate the needs of my guest? And so design is sort of in the same way. We're thinking in relationships with people, designing for one person. And usually when you're designing for one person, that will touch the heart of so many other people. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just a weird person. I like playing with food. I'm basically a big child. That's the secret. You just have to be like a big kid. I think that's it.
Yeah, let's give it up for Erin. Erin Jang. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. One note, if you have a guest badge, if you could return it to the front, that would be greatly appreciated. Dylan has a bucket. She is Vanna Whiting. Yeah, and we'll be back next month. Yeah, let's give it up for Erin.
Thank you so much.